Welcome and thanks for joining me on the Gut Health Turnaround Series 2.0, 21 ways to heal your gut, reclaim your energy, and look and feel amazing. My name is Leah Kline, Health and Wholeness Coach, and I will be your host. Today I'm being joined by Joel Sprechman, and he is going to be talking about One Great Gut, a benefit company, and Joel's journey from hell to full holistic healing. Thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks, Leah. I'm honored to be here.
As way of background, let me give you a little more information on him. Formerly a top secret engineer for U.S. DoD National Security Program, sales engineering, and business and digital marketing consultant. In 2001, he was diagnosed with severe ulcerative colitis, similar to Crohn's disease, in addition to other incurable diseases. For 10 years following the advice of his doctors, his diseases only worsened, the side effects debilitating. He refused surgery and chemotherapy, used nutrition and natural therapy to heal himself. His talk, How Living Healthy Almost Killed Me, will be an upcoming TEDx talk. He's a member of Q Biologics IBD Community Advisory Board panel, One Great Gut's vision is to become the #1 science-backed gut health resource in service of the 80 million funky guts in the U.S. He's taught yoga at CCFA, Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America events, and volunteered as a camp counselor at Camp Oasis for children of with IBD. He has a BS in computer engineering from SUNY Buffalo, a certificate of health coaching from the Integrative Institute of Nutrition, and graduated from the Pilgrimage of the Heart Yoga as a yoga and meditation teacher. He mixes science and spirituality while sipping his green juice. All right, so thank you for being a part of this and for your dedication to alternative information for people and getting that out there, especially for the IBD and IBS people. Why is the One Great Gut program, or I should say company, a nonprofit?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let me back up a second and explain what is One Great Gut. So One Great Gut is a for-benefit company, and our overarching mission, I'll just read it right from the website. So our overarching mission is a world without digestive ailments, a world without inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and even irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. We look forward to a time when those just don't exist anymore and are eradicated. We're calling for unification of the integrative, holistic community. So, there are different words to describe, treatment. So it could be under conventional allopathic, it could be under integrative, holistic, alternative, or even functional medicine. Mm-hmm. The mission calls for patients, caregivers, family, and friends to connect with professionals who are at the forefront of not only gut health treatment, but also research. So I've personally been a patient for probably 2 decades and have had a lifelong journey of healing even before I was diagnosed. I've founded support groups that have had hundreds of people in them, and I've never met a patient who wants to be on medicine, who wants to have surgery, who wants to be on drugs. I think those are great options and very helpful, but it's not necessarily what a patient wants. So that's where I'm looking to hopefully unify both the integrative side, which looks at the whole body of the person, versus, and the conventional side. They're both very valuable pieces. Other parts of our mission that I think very quickly are important here. As you mentioned, our vision is to become the #1 science-backed gut health resource. We believe that, gut health is just about everything, our second brain, where our mood regulation comes from, serotonin, happiness, where our immune comes from, where our instinct comes from. We believe that the upward trending of these diseases and conditions is not acceptable, and a frequent run for the bathroom upwards of 20 or more times a day. We have an ambassador program that the mission of the ambassador program is to build awareness and to really destigmatize these chronic conditions by specifically highlighting the lives of people that thrive and live while on their own personal mission to improve their personal gut health. Our ambassadors, we find, are gutsy and glamorous and genuine and gentlemanly and genial and generous and giving. And in plain English, they're just great people. Other parts of the mission that I feel are really important to encompass what One Great Gut is we feel that, IBD is trending upwards at about a 12% rate every year. There's 1.6 million Americans with Crohn's or colitis, 800,000 who have Crohn's and 800,000 who have colitis. If you include IBD or leaky gut, now we're talking about 80% of the US population. And I haven't even touched about other countries, both first world and third world, which wasn't always the case. So it's trending upwards. So because the disease is trending upwards, that's where we believe the current gold standard of treatment is lacking. And that's where, so leaky gut is often a symptom of IBD, of Crohn's and colitis, and also IBS. So it may seem a little bit strange to be talking about IBD and IBS in the same conversation, but when you look towards the ancient healings, ancestral healings, be it traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda from India, they oftentimes look at IBD and IBS very similarly. Certainly not the same, but very similarly. We do believe, and we've seen countless examples of where one's gut health is 100% healable. And there's many factors, like you need the correct health practitioner team, the right doctors, right physicians, healers, even love, community, family support to really holistically heal this diagnosis that we have on our physical body. We believe that diet alone can often can medically treat IBD and IBS. Maybe controversial, but we believe that surgery curing ulcerative colitis, as we're often told, is questionable. There's no doubt that surgery has saved millions of lives, but we feel it might be recommended too soon and too often. Same with colonoscopies. While they're a very useful diagnostic tool, perhaps they're recommended too often with potential risks and side effects, and very similar with antibiotics. The overarching vision of One Great Gut is we're curating and creating the best resources available everywhere for optimal gut health to empower your highest potential. Really striving for non-toxic, safe, effective treatments available for everyone, regardless of demographic, regardless of geographic location, and regardless of financial resources available. That's our greatest vision. So with that in mind, why is One Great Gut not a nonprofit, as you asked? Well, it's interesting. I learned this myself recently. For years, I was running a nonprofit. We called it Cure IBD Foundation. It's still on the web. I think the YouTube channel is up and the Facebook page is still up. I didn't go through the legal rigmarole of actually founding a 501c3, but I felt that nonprofit was really the best thing to do. Eventually, that project became unsustainable, and I really stepped back and looked really, how can I best contribute to this epidemic of gut health globally? And a B Corp for me is the answer. So what is a B Corp? What is a for-benefit corp? It's similar to a nonprofit in that the work we do must be with the greater good in mind, not just for the good of a few select shareholders. And what I mean by that is, and this is a little bit legal mumbo jumbo, but S Corps and C Corps, like most companies that we're aware of, legally they're handcuffed that they have to make decisions with profit in mind, with their shareholders in mind. And it makes sense. If I'm going to invest in a company, I want to make my money back. So the legal structure is off. Now we have this thing called a B Corp, which has been around for a couple of years. I just learned of it in the last couple of months. It allows us to make decisions with not just profit. That's important. I mean, I need to pay my rent, but also people, planet, and purpose. So I can really shift what our decisions are every day and not just go towards profit because the law tells me I have to. Unlike a 501c3, unlike a nonprofit, we're still taxed as a business. So it doesn't really seem it's entirely beneficial to us. And in fact, B Corps receive no special tax benefits over traditional incorporated businesses. And actually, it makes it harder for us to operate because I can't receive tax. I can receive donations, but I can't offer tax deductible donations back to those who want to donate. So we're working on a fiscal sponsor to incorporate that shortly. But this is why we chose a B Corp versus any other legal entity, be it for benefit or LLC or S Corp or C Corp.
Okay. All right. So why don't you go ahead and tell us more about your health journey and your professional background and just kind of how you got into this in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I'll tell you what, when I was growing up, I never thought I'm going to be someone who is contributing to the integrative health industry, who's contributing to coaching and, creating a team of doctors and a scientific advisory board. I truly wanted to be an astronaut. The first time I ever thought about what I wanted to be was an astronaut. And I always wanted to go into space because I wanted to learn. I wanted to see how other people live. I don't know, is there life out there? I have no idea. But I wanted to go explore. And I've definitely explored. I've been very fortunate to have been to almost 30 countries and different cultures and foods and just the way people live. And I'm a very curious person. While this was all happening, while I'm traveling and I'm being curious, I started getting sick. And I had a lot of headaches as a child. And one day, I'll never forget the day I was living in Arlington, Virginia, very close to the Pentagon. I was working as an engineer, as you mentioned. And as a single bachelor, I didn't really cook too much. I didn't even know how to cook. And I got a package in the mail from Mom. So as any person who lives alone and doesn't know how to cook, if you get a package from Mom, you're really excited. I remember my girlfriend was home. She was in the living room. And I got the cutting knife and I opened it up. And inside were cookies. And I love cookies. Mom likes to make things a little bit healthier. So I was hoping for one of those like black and white cookies that I had growing up in New York, but Mom sent me oatmeal cookies, a little bit healthier than a black and white cookie, I'm sure. And as soon as I took one bite into the cookie, immediately I had to go to the bathroom. And that just repeated over and over and over again. And eventually I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I was told that it's a chronic disease. I didn't know what chronic meant. Engineers are not known for having vast vocabularies. And I just thought, I go to the doctor, I'm sick, I get a prescription, I'll get better. That night, I went home and looked on the internet, or Dr. Google, as I like to say, and I learned that chronic means forever. And I was livid. I was super angry at my doctor that he didn't have the forethought, the bedside manners to explain what this really meant. So that led me down a journey of really over a decade of suffering. And it started with Rawasa, which is then it was shameful, but it's a suspension enema of mesalamine. I was given Asacol and Canasa and Lialda. And I wasn't giving them all at one time. Basically, I'd be on one or two of those drugs. I'd go back to my life and the disease would worsen. It's a dynamic disease. It would get worse and worse, go back to a different doctor because I immediately fired the first one. I found another GI and he gave me a new drug. Well, that was not working. Try this one. Couple weeks, couple months later, that was not working. Try this one. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse. While at the same time, I'm living my life as best I can be, a normal 20-year-old while having these flares and super embarrassing bathroom moments and really no one really none of my friends knew, and I barely even shared with my girlfriend or family what was going on, because it can be rather embarrassing, hence the importance of our ambassador program. So eventually I wanted to move to California. Every time I came to California, I just loved it out here. I started to recognize that I did better on healthier food. So when I was living in Washington, D.C., a typical appetizer would be maybe buffalo wings and mozzarella sticks. And that sure the heck tastes good, but it definitely didn't do well on my stomach. So coming up to California, there were things like artichokes and avocado, and all these healthy foods. This is back in 2008 is when I moved here. At this point, I'd moved from being a engineer in the DoD, FBI wiretapping world, and moved over to the sales side, where my clients were like Navy and Air Force and Marines. So as being on the sales side, a lot more freedom. I was living at an amazing property on the beach, like literally the beach was my front yard. But I kept getting sicker and getting sicker and sicker. And it got to the point where doctors didn't know what to do. I remember going to my doctor and she said, "You're fine, you're healthy." Well, I knew I wasn't. So I gave I have a good friend who's a medical doctor. He's now on our board, Dr. Lee. And I gave him my CBC, my complete blood testing. I was like, "Dude, what do you think? Like, she's telling me I'm fine. I'm not fine." And he said, "To be honest, Joel, if you came to me with this, diagnostic data, I would tell you you're fine too." So I knew there was something missing, and the doctors I was seeing, who I trusted, weren't able to help me out. Mm-hmm. So I enrolled. At that point, I had just become aware of yoga as this weird thing called yoga. I saw some random website and mentioned that yoga historically had cured disease. It was the first time I ever had a thought that something can cure disease, and I was definitely bedridden at times by disease. So I'm severely inflexible, and yoga was the furthest thing from what I wanted, but I was being drawn to it. Like, my gut instinct was telling me, try this out. And there are pretty girls in tight pants, so it worked for me as a single guy as well. I became a yoga teacher. I went to school at integrative nutrition and became a holistic coach. I did work at Landmark Education, a lot of other work related to emotional intelligence and just EQ, increasing that. Through all of that is when I started to really get better. And I started to really become an empowered patient and really tune in to understand which doctors can help and which doctors can't, and recognizing when ego might get in the way of maybe referring a patient out to another doctor, or maybe a specialist, or maybe an alternative doctor that might know more for this current particular patient. So that's pretty much where I've been as far as my health journey. 2011 to 2015 were really tough years, and I probably should have been on disability. My health and my income translated to that being a possibility. My pride got in the way, and my income certainly suffered. I had to downsize a lot. I had to move. I had to sell things. Almost moved back home with mom at one point back in New York. It was a very stressful time, and now I can literally say that I'm at the peak of my health. I'm 43. I had to think about that for a second. I'm 43, and I've never ever felt healthier. It's been a journey, and I feel honored. I feel excited to be able to help others, because I know still today I meet patients who are told that diet doesn't matter, whether they're in San Diego and were just diagnosed, an 18-year-old female who reached out to me recently, or a woman in Spain, or even Australia. This gentleman in Australia is kind of interesting. He, through an entrepreneur group, we got connected last November. So I was still sick, but I had a lot of valuable information. And he was in hospital 19 days, terrible bowel movements and symptoms and pain. And he was 2 days away from surgery scheduled, which is irreversible, obviously, and potentially life-saving. Thankfully, we had a conversation, and he understood some of the recommendations I gave him. And fast forward now, we're actually a year and a month later, and he's still healing, but he has all this. He has his colon, he has his organ, which makes it's easier to further heal when we have all of our organs that we were born with. So that's pretty much my story and where I've been and where I am now. All
right. So if obviously you have been down this road and you have experienced a lot, if one of our listeners is, kind of just getting started on this experience, recently diagnosed, suffering, big flare-up or something, what steps do you feel would be the most impactful for them to do to get started helping themselves?
That's a really good question. A lot of times, often when we receive this very dramatic news of chronic disease, maybe you were just diagnosed, or maybe you are back into a flare. So you're doing fine for a while, and all of a sudden you're back into a flare. We lose touch with ourselves, and we don't know who to turn to. We turn to those who we've trusted our whole lives. Maybe it's your mom or a father or mother or best friend or wife or husband or partner. And sometimes the recommendations are great, and sometimes they're not. So it's really, I feel that we are our own best doctor, and we know innately what our next step is. We may not know how to get there, but we know who to reach out to next. So what I mean by that is, a big part of my journey has been really becoming self-empowered and surrounding myself with a tremendous community, whether they're my roommates who are artists and educators and coaches, or they're doctors, but it's people who really are out for my best interest and not necessarily, it's a win-win relationship. It's not a codependent relationship, if that makes sense. So one, surround yourself with those who really are out for your best interest. Two, sometimes all we have is hope. When I was at my worst and literally couldn't get out of bed, hope really, really made a difference. So I'm excited to share, I think, an ebook or something I'll be sending that's going to have stories of hope. These are stories of people that I personally interviewed over the years who were at just close to not making it in hospital and then completely rebounding and thriving. I think belief is undervalued. So just real quick, if we have 3 boxes, so one box, I cannot be cured. Second box, maybe I can be cured. And third box, I definitely can be cured. I recognized last April that I was spending a lot of money on supplements, on doctor visits, a lot of travel, waiting in waiting rooms. I even traveled to Australia for treatment that's not legal, not available legally here yet, fecal transplants. I was spending a lot of money on my physical. But when I recognized the concept of belief, I was here. I was on empty. I didn't believe I could heal. I believed I would never get better. So my belief is, if we're stuck here on empty, nothing we do, the amount of money, the people, nothing matters. So focus on changing your belief. And there's different ways I can recommend doing that, or you can look online. For me, hypnosis was super powerful, and finding a trusted practitioner to work with, or on our website, on our endorsed doctor network, we have some hypnotherapists, very, very valuable to move me from here to here. I think slowing down and journaling, whether when you wake up and you still haven't had all of your senses come back, and maybe have your morning coffee or your water, but really journaling your emotions and your feelings. And then when you have enough courage, speaking your emotions and feelings to others in your life, where maybe you don't feel that you're being listened to, or you don't feel validated, and maybe it's reaching out to a therapist. I find the NLP hypnotic type therapy to be very powerful versus the standard talk therapy. For me, was not very valuable. I was talking to my intern, one of our interns, Noah. He's an amazing kid. He has a colostomy bag, and he's just such a gift to be working with him, and his heart is so big. I asked him, I was like, hey, have you had therapy at all? And he's like, yeah, I've had 2 therapists. They're awesome guys, and it's been really, really great. I was like, cool. Have you seen any change from working with them? The reason you went to them in the first place and now? And he said, no, I haven't really seen it. I haven't gotten really what I wanted fixed. So my theory is some therapy is broken, some types of therapy, just like some types of doctors maybe are not looking out for best interest. I don't think they're the reason, but I think just their training might be ineffective. So try and find a therapist or that can really help with these emotions, with these beliefs. Also, I don't know about you guys, but I love I love doing quizzes. And on those websites, you're like, oh, fill out this quiz and you can learn this. So myself and Dr. Heather Sandison, my personal doctor, not my doctor, we have a quiz that we came up with, a gut health quiz. We'll have it on the website soon. It'll be something I sent to you guys listening. And it's a quiz that'll really show you what are the underlying factors that can lead you to a flare, that are holding you back from your next level. And it's not questions you'd normally see that you'd normally relate to health, but after working with a lot of patients, we've seen that these types of self-inquiry is very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to know what you're doing in order to change it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Start there. So what are some things that coping strategies like that you use yourself and suggest to others as far as handling the stress and emotional and mental? You mentioned hypnosis as being one of the things you've done.
Yeah. Coping strategies are huge. So my personality type is go, and just continually go and party, have fun, learn, travel, and never really taking time for myself. So one coping strategy is to taking time for myself, just closing my door, or going into nature, or finding a quiet spot. And you can call it meditation, you can call it prayer, you can call it quiet time. The word doesn't really matter, but really tuning in to what are my personal needs? What is my heart speaking? What is my gut saying? There are times when there was no reason for me to have painful symptoms, except I had a conversation with someone and it really pissed me off. And that made me go downward spiral on health. So really noticing what are those trigger moments that are causing this pain. Was it food? Was it medicine? Was it a conversation I had with someone? Was something I saw on TV, or 2 people interacting at a restaurant that I didn't approve of? Is that what's causing me? Is this constant worrying? So really noticing what is it that's is causing the problem. And so quiet time really helps. I've found, and I think studies even show this, that depression and mental health is a big problem when dealing with gut pain. Giving back, really donating time, donating whatever I can, really shifts depression and just taking you out of sadness into happiness. And there's a balance, right? There's a balance of not giving too much. We have to know when to pull back and honor ourselves and when to give back. But if someone is going through depression and is sad and stuck at home, see who you can give back to. Send maybe a happy note to someone, I love you text, or write a letter, or maybe go to your local strip mall or supermarket and leave a random stranger a note. See how that does for your mental health and your happiness. I bet you it'll quick things around pretty quickly. And the last thing is triggers and repeated patterns. So what I mean by that is oftentimes things show up in our life for a reason. We're presented these problems, which I view as opportunities. So whether it's stress or whether it's someone who's continually coming back in our life for maybe they want something from us, or maybe they're offering us something, but it's always putting in this bad place emotionally, and it causes pain. I know my mom and I have had a very a roller coaster ride of a relationship, and in the past she would literally check out of communication for like upwards of a week or two. That's a long time in our life for 2 weeks to be not talking to someone. And she's had a very tough life, and she's a really strong woman. I mean, going back to Holocaust in Eastern Europe and death marches, like that's literally been her upbringing. She's an amazing woman. And now when something happens between us or her and somebody else, maybe an hour or two, maybe a day, no longer checks out for 2 years. So through quiet time and meditation and prayer, we can really notice where we're checking out of life and what is the pattern that's happening repeated and repeated, because those patterns are where we can notice where we can shift, and where we can shift out of being disempowered to being empowered. So I think those are different things. View problem and stress as opportunities, meditation, quiet time and prayer, and look for patterns, and don't hesitate to reach out for professional help. There's no, forget ego, forget pride. There's no embarrassment necessary. People are here to help, and find the ones that truly resonate with you and align with you, and work with them, because people do really want to help you. Just have to find the right person and send the right email or make the phone call.
All right. So why don't you tell us about, you were mentioning your free gift earlier. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners about that?
Sure, yeah. So let me find, I just wrote this down. I wanted to read it correctly. So we're blessed to have here at One Great Correct, we're blessed to have an amazing team of doctors and coaches and practitioners. And so I was chatting with them recently. I said, what can we offer as a free gift to people who maybe are not thriving and maybe they're hurting? So I was able to graciously receive 4 amazing coaching sessions or healing sessions. So first one is with Dr. Christine Tarrant-Peterson. She's a PhD. She's a certified Ayurvedic practitioner, so the ancient healing arts from India. She's also a yoga teacher, and she's a researcher. Like, she's in the lab working with the microbiome, and to be honest, way beyond my, I don't understand what she's lab. I haven't visited her there yet, but she's offered a 90-minute Ayurvedic consult that's valued at $400. You can read more information about her on our website, on the team, as well as the onegreatgut.com/Dr. Peterson page. But so that's a one free consult with her, and she's had massive success with really very, very top-notch entrepreneurs, as well as just your everyday person. She can work here in person in Northern San Diego, or she can work on Skype remotely. So anywhere in the world, she's willing to help. Second, a raffle to win a free 50-minute introductory health coaching session with Kimball Wilson. She's a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and has her own health coaching company. Through her personal journey of gut health, she has a passion for working with individuals who struggle with low energy, with digestive problems, and with weight issues. I've known her for many years. She's an amazing woman, and that value is at $250. Joe Figliano. So he's one of the IBD heroes I mentioned earlier. He is actually visiting California right now from Australia. So you can win a free 60-minute self-healing coaching session with Joe. Joe's a self-healing coach and brain trainer. He's overcome a life-threatening, decade-long battle with Crohn's disease, and he's now almost 9 years symptom-free, without medication or strict diets. I know for those who choose a strict diet to treat your gut health, can you imagine living with a life where you pretty much eat what you want? That's Joe, and I've seen it in action, and he walks his talk. It's pretty amazing. So he values that 60-minute talk at $170. And then with myself, I don't do coaching very often, but I do enjoy it. If someone wants to coach with me, I'd be happy to. So it's a 60-minute health consultation with myself. And that's typically around $250 an hour. I'm now flare free, I'm medication free, and most of the time I'm symptom free. The way we'll pick that raffle, I think just sign up for our email list and maybe send in a note on why you think your story is worthy of this, because I love connecting with people at the story level. I've only shared with you a portion of my story, and I think that's where we really can connect by just removing this shame and connect at the story level of how are you doing? This is how I'm doing. That kind of conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So to connect with you and sign up for the list, that's at onegreatgut.com, correct?
Correct.
All right, and just tell them that you came from the Gut Health Turnaround series, and let them know where you're at and how you're doing, and how you could benefit from that. So, all right. Thank you, Joel, for joining me today and sharing all of that great information and history with us. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and come back tomorrow for more of the Gut Health Turnaround series.